Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on using ESSER funds for early warning systems. My name is Mark Heath. I'm a Principal Associate at Education Resource Strategies, and we're super excited to have you here today to talk about this really important topic. A little bit about us. Education Resource Strategies, or ERS, is a national nonprofit, and we partner with district, school, and state leaders to transform how they use resources. And when we talk about resources, we're mostly thinking about people, time, and money, so that every school prepares every child for tomorrow, no matter their race or income. Specifically, in furthering our mission in this moment of response to the disruptions to students' experiences caused by COVID-19, ERS has created a series of guidebooks to support districts in strategically implementing high-impact strategies using stimulus dollars with an eye towards sustainability. We're excited to highlight shining examples of transformational work happening across the country, where districts and schools are making intentional efforts to support students and improve schools now, while also engaging in critical conversations and shifts to ensure the sustainability of these strategies once short-term revenue streams expire. Especially given new and intensified student needs, we know that schools and districts around the country are grappling with how to identify students in need of targeted academic and social emotional supports in order to provide the appropriate interventions. Our Early Warning Systems Resource Guide focuses on how districts might organize resources, including short-term ESSER funds, as well as strategic staffing and scheduling decisions to support research-backed approaches to implementing an early warning system in their schools. Let's first start by outlining the research on these early warning indicators. Specifically, researchers have found that there are three key metrics that can be used to identify and/or predict which students will need additional support for graduation in 4 years. While these metrics may vary from community to community, the nationally generalized indicators are absenteeism, behavior referrals, and course failure, known as the ABCs. Research completed by the Everyone Graduates Center on students in Philadelphia public schools showed that as students demonstrate these three metrics, they were less likely to be enrolled in grade level coursework and on track to graduate in 4 years. Through their analysis, they concluded that students' likelihood of graduation decreased as they showed one, and in some cases more than one indicator. Specifically, students were nearly twice as likely to graduate if they showed no indicator than if they showed one or more. Given the increase of absenteeism, behavior referrals, and course failures nationwide in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic, this research is especially compelling and important as schools and districts make investments broadly and to target the students with the most need. In response to these statistics and research, schools and districts across the country are implementing a growing practice called early warning systems. These systems use methodical and recurring processes to analyze student data and compare it to these research-backed indicators to identify students in need of additional support. These students can then be matched with appropriate interventions, and their progress is monitored over time so the supports can be adapted as necessary. These early warning systems are typically led by one or more campus teams composed of a facilitator, as well as teachers and relevant support staff who meet at least monthly to analyze new data and adapt interventions. These teams often have a similar structure to MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support. The primary difference, though, is that early warning system teams have an explicit and targeted focus on analyzing student data with respect to these research-backed indicators, whereas MTSS teams may or may not have that focus. Often, schools start with focusing on a particular grade level for their early warning system, typically a transition year such as 8th or 9th grade, and then may decide to expand the program into other grades or maintain a targeted intensive focus on that particular grade. While some schools and districts had strong early warning systems before the pandemic, we see this as an especially impactful and strategic investment in secondary schools given our new social context. As I mentioned, we know that there are more students experiencing more intense needs as a result of the pandemic. In addition, the impacts of hybrid and virtual schooling, increased absenteeism, and staff turnover may make it more challenging to get a full picture of students' needs. Early warning systems can help target resources well in a few ways. Specifically, this approach ensures that school staff are using a methodical research-backed process. It requires gathering and analyzing up-to-date data, and it focuses intervention efforts on students most in need of support in an iterative process, as shown in this chart on the right. In addition to research on targeted indicators, there's also compelling examples of the ways in which early warning systems have improved student outcomes and graduation rates. Two notable examples are highlighted here on this slide, one from a 2017 study completed by the American Institutes for Research and the US Department of Education, which found that schools who implemented early warning systems had statistically significantly lower rates of absenteeism and course failure after the first year of implementing the early warning system. Another organization, CT Rise, has seen grade 9 on-track rates improve by nearly 10 percentage points in their 3 years of partnership with districts in Connecticut, with emphasized growth for students with disabilities and English language learners. However, it's really important to ensure that districts use indicators and thresholds that match their particular context. The ABCs, attendance, behavior referrals, and course failure, are a good starting point, but thresholds should be locally validated and indicators should be used carefully and with appropriate supports for the staff on early warning system teams. For example, behavior metrics and disciplinary actions that are not adopted or adapted to schools' specific context and normed by staff can fall prey to personal and systemic biases. So how can districts use this moment post-pandemic to invest in a sustainable approach to early warning systems? To do so, there are 4 key components. First is time for the early warning system team to collaborate, either in the school day or, if necessary, stipended time outside of the school day. Second is coordination oversight of the program, including managing and collecting data. This may be someone already in your school buildings or a newly hired position. Third is professional learning for your early warning systems team members on skills like data and root cause analysis to ensure interventions target the most significant factors for student success. And lastly, an early warning system tool or software is really important, and especially one that can be targeted, that can be integrated with your student information system for continued tracking and monitoring of student progress. For our time today, we're focusing on all aspects of early warning system except the actual interventions themselves. To learn more about how to invest sustainably related to scheduling and staffing needs to support students in intervention, check out our guidebook and webinar on targeted academic supports. Most importantly, we know from districts across the country that it's really important to invest in each of these components and that the investments include all. Focusing on one will only hinder the efficacy of the overall strategy in early warning systems. In the next few slides, we'll dive into each of these components and discuss the factors that influence scheduling, staffing, and financial investment. We'll first focus on the appropriate time for the early warning system team to collaborate. Remember that this is when the strategically identified and designated staff members come together to analyze data, plan interventions, and discuss student progress. Finding the appropriate time depends primarily on the size and composition of early warning system teams in a school, which will vary with school size and student need. One example from the Everyone Graduates Center suggests that one early warning system point person can appropriately support a school with fewer than 25 students with early warning indicators, whereas communities with higher rates of students demonstrating these indicators may need to reserve time for school-wide or even grade level early warning system teams. Once the team is set, districts and schools also need to decide on the frequency of collaboration time. Research suggests that teams will ideally meet once or twice a month for 90 minutes, though this is another place where context can be an important factor in the design and investment. From our work in schools, we know that there are a variety of ways to embed this time into the school day, like building new time in the schedule or repurposing existing teacher collaboration time. And that some schools and districts are leveraging support staff and community partners to cover release time, while others are stipending team members to meet outside of the school day. We'll go through some scheduling examples for this time at the end of the webinar, and even more can be found on our professional learning and collaboration webinar. In addition to this team that meets at a regular cadence, an effective early warning system will need personnel to oversee and coordinate data collection and analysis. This role is essential in helping early warning systems adapt to ensure the use of locally validated metrics and thresholds, and plays an important role in data gathering, analysis, communication, and progress monitoring. As mentioned before, some systems repurpose existing roles and responsibilities, while others create new positions. This role is also a key player in collaborating with stakeholders and coordinating continuous improvement. For example, early warning systems need coordinators to support the school and district in identifying and responding to root causes that contribute to higher rates of early warning indicators and supporting continuous improvement of the early warning system itself. This will likely include conversation with stakeholders like students and families before, during, and even after interventions. All school staff will also need startup training and additional ongoing professional development throughout all aspects of the early warning system process. For the initial data collection, all instructional staff may need professional development on implicit biases, grading practices, and culturally relevant curriculum to ensure reliable early warning indicator rate identification. For data analysis, early warning systems coordinators and teams may need training and protocols to ensure students are reached with the appropriate interventions, given their indicators and root causes, and that the system continues to adapt as students grow. And finally, instructional staff may need specific training on interventions they may need to implement as part of the early warning system. All of these supports can be purchased from an external provider or stipended using in-house expertise. For the last component, a district may require additional data infrastructure to support a robust early warning system. This may come in the form of a data management system or visualization tool that can be integrated with the SIS and easily used by school staff to view student level data throughout the identification and intervention cycle. The key here is to ensure this infrastructure supports monitoring students' progress through the interventions and making adaptations where trends occur. Although early warning systems are school-based systems, school districts need to set up an environment that allows their schools to successfully implement them. This includes having strong central processes, such as clear attendance and grading policies that will ensure reliable and up-to-date data on student indicators, and a strong district data team that supports schools with high-quality software and tools and supports them in using them. Schools are more likely to succeed if districts allow them to be flexible with their staff assignment and scheduling, which can enable teachers of early warning systems to collaborate, as we'll see through some of the upcoming examples. As we shift to thinking about implementation, the availability of ESSER dollars and the particularly high levels of student need right now might mean that the next couple of school years are an ideal time to invest in additional staff for early warning system collaboration at schools and/or stipend teachers to meet in early warning system teams outside of school. However, it's also a critical time to pilot and evaluate ways to make these investments in an early warning system more sustainable. This might include shifting calendars, schedules, and teacher assignments to embed early warning system collaboration time within the school day, rather than continuing with stipends over time. Or it could mean building the data collection, analysis, and progress monitoring into existing roles, reducing the need for dedicated personnel at the school and district level. Much more detail on ESSER funding in the context of academic supports can be found in our full guidebook. Additionally, no matter what stage you are in the process of implementing an early warning system, it's critical to monitor your progress and use continuous improvement cycles. The district should invest in rapid cycles of continuous improvement to answer things like, what schools are having the most success and how can we share their effective practices at other schools? Where are challenges arising and how can they be addressed? And many more resources on continuous improvement can be found on the ERS website. We will close our time today by examining some potential examples of strategic staffing and scheduling for your early warning system. As a reminder, there are multiple options for staffing and scheduling time for early warning system teams to collaborate and engage in data analysis and intervention planning and monitoring. Deciding which one works for a school largely relies on the scale of student need. The least complicated with regards to scheduling, but the most expensive in terms of financial cost, is stipending regular meetings before or after school, as seen on the right-hand side of the table on this slide. While this ensures the appropriate staff are all free, regardless of how many or the right configuration, it also requires a clear exit plan for a more sustainable strategy to embed collaboration in the day in the future. This more sustainable decision to embed during the day has different resource implications depending on the number of staff and their existing roles at schools. If there is only one cross-functional team at a school, our guidebook on collaboration offers concrete examples on finding common release time. And if that's challenging, targeted duty coverage can allow this team to meet once or twice a month, as seen in the top left-hand box. The most complex examples occur when there are multiple early warning systems teams in a school with collaboration embedded during the day. In the following examples, we'll show how schools can leverage existing collaboration time or create this time using targeted early release days. In our first example, early warning system teams meet in existing repurposed collaboration blocks, notably grade level teams. This is likely the case in larger schools or schools with higher rates of indicator identification, in which a 9th grade early warning system team allows teachers and staff to analyze student data from only the 9th grade. To do this, the school in this example uses its 4x4 block schedule and aligns all 9th grade students to electives in the same period. Typically, this time would be used for core content teachers to collaboratively plan, but once a month, this time is repurposed for data analysis and intervention planning and monitoring as part of the early warning system. This example works best in schools where teachers teach primarily one grade, so that they all have one shared planning block with other teachers from that grade, and where there are enough elective options and teachers to enable all students of one grade to have electives at once. Some trade-offs that might occur here include elective teachers having larger class sizes or shorter planning times each day. Then you'll also see that there is a school-wide intervention and enrichment block, as noted here in the yellow, which is used to implement the supports that come out of the early warning systems team meeting. Another alternative could be that responsibilities during this school-wide or grade-wide intervention block could be shifted that allow the early warning systems team to be free and meet then. Our targeted academic supports guidebook and webinar contain rich detail on how to structure and use a school-wide intervention block for a variety of goals. Our second example showcases using a monthly early release day. In this example, students in 9th and 10th grades engage in programming provided by community partners on the first Wednesday of every month, as shown in the lower early release student schedule on the right. This allows all teachers in those grades to participate in early warning systems meetings. This option does reduce course seat time for students as they have early release some days, and it can incur additional costs contracting with partners. But it creates protected time for teachers, especially as those who teach multiple grades can now easily participate. While this special release happens on the first Wednesday of each month for 9th and 10th graders, it occurs on the second Wednesday of each month for 11th and 12th graders. This rotation can help mitigate the cost of providing external partnerships for all students in a school to be released on the same day, and it embeds early warning systems as a broader component of how all students are supported throughout their secondary career, rather than focusing on just one grade level. Whereas the first example had a school-wide intervention block built in to deliver the supports from early warning systems, this example might include that intervention time as part of the partner programming for students. And again, our targeted academic supports guidebook and webinar contain much more detail on how to structure and use lots of different intervention blocks for a variety of goals. You can find even more content on early warning systems in our full guidebook, including additional details on how to sustainably use short-term funds to build strong systems, and more research on the impacts of early warning systems. We greatly appreciate all the work that you're doing for students and hope that you found today's webinar to be thought-provoking and helpful as you embark on or support others in expanding access to early warning systems using stimulus dollars. We'd love to keep in touch, and if there are ways that ERS can support you or ways that we can learn from you, please do reach out using any of the methods that you see here on the screen. One more reminder that early warning systems is one in a series of high-impact ESSER investment strategies that we've created guidance on. We'll be diving into strategic spending, staffing, and scheduling models on other topics like tutoring, targeted academic supports, and connected professional learning in future webinars. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you soon.